Well, just hours after locking down Vic Fangio, the Birds are not done yet. They're trying to add more superstar coaches to his defensive staff. Also hear why Adam Schefter thinks the Eagles' offensive coordinator search is taking longer than expected. One new name has immediately jumped to the front of my list for OC, and one Eagles insider just confirmed a changing of the power structure inside the coaching ranks at the NovaCare complex. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. Clarity is needed on Nick Sirianni's role and position following the Birds' joint press conference yesterday, where both Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman confirmed that whoever is going to be the team's OC will in fact call plays and run the entire offense, which left many of us wondering, what exactly does Nick Sirianni do, and who does he report to as the head coach? Well, Jeff McLean detailed some of this out, saying, quote, Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni doesn't report to GM Howie Roseman. He reports directly to owner Jeffrey Lurie. While it may be true that Roseman is more entrenched than Sirianni and more of a confidant to Lurie, considering their time together and how their dynamic affects who is the head coach, he didn't make the final decision on Sirianni's future with the Eagles. Lurie did, and he can only effectively answer the question as to why. Okay, well, that's at least kind of good to know. Lurie makes the final decision, which I guess he should as the owner. Howie can meddle, but not necessarily make the final calls. And I guess if Lurie believes in Sirianni, doesn't mean we have to, but maybe it gives us a little bit more confidence in the head coach. Now, in terms of not calling the plays, I do agree with the fact that I wish they would have hired a head coach who was a little bit better of an offensive guru and might actually call his own plays like Shane Steichen does. However, we still can't. This is not me defending Nick Sirianni. You guys know if you watched this channel the past couple of weeks, I've been a staunch defender of firing the guy. I wanted Nick Sirianni gone. But listen to Jason Kelce there, looking at other head coaches who are still alive in the playoffs right now, who don't actually call plays. I don't think it's the worst thing possible. I do think that creating a really strong staff around Sirianni to support him is at least the best chance Philadelphia has of being more competent in 2024. Now, in terms of forming that really important staff, I think the offensive coordinator position is extremely important to make sure Philadelphia can not only spice up this really bland offense, but more importantly, get behind Jalen Hurts and continue his growth and process into what should be a top 3, top 5 quarterback going forward. And, of course, former Eagles like Chris Long seem to agree with me.
The play calling wasn't where you want to be this year, right? Now, I think Jalen's the answer, right? Like, I don't think we're talking about the quarterback. And I think Jalen can look a lot more like the guy that MVP season with the right calls and the right coaching.
But who will that play caller be? We've already talked about how Cliff Kingsbury already interviewed in Philadelphia. They also interviewed former Texans quarterback coach Gerard Johnson, who was very integral in the process and growth of CJ Stroud this season. But Philadelphia yesterday met virtually with Chargers OC and, I guess, formerly interim head coach Kellen Moore, and that name is very, very interesting. Now, Moore, of course, did struggle this past year with the Chargers. Injuries were part of the issue. Coaching dysfunction maybe played a major role. What I look at when thinking about Kellen Moore is what he did as the OC in Dallas. Dak Prescott in 4 seasons, they had the number 2 ranked total offense and averaged 27.7 yards per game with Dak and company. And while he seemingly doesn't have what it takes to lead an entire NFL team as a head coach just yet, I think he checks a lot of the boxes we've all wanted that include not only experience at the NFL level, being a proven play caller with a really strong track record, 2 things that Gerard Johnson doesn't have yet. And while Kingsbury is similar, Moore has a more NFL style of approach, whereas Cliff seemingly would stick to a more pass-heavy college spread attack. Either way, whether you like Moore or not, according to Adam Schefter yesterday on The Fanatic, Philadelphia is still trying to cast a really wide net on their OC search, and even if they like Kellen Moore, they might take a while in figuring out who's going to be the next OC.
They had Gerard Johnson and the Texans quarterbacks coach yesterday. They've spoken to Cliff Kingsbury. I think they're talking to a whole slew of candidates. I know they've spoken to at least one guy at the college level. I don't know whether anything like that will materialize or not. So they're going through a little bit more of a process. That's a little bit more involved, in my mind, than the search for defensive coordinators. Defense coordinator is easy and done. Offense coordinator, not as cut and dried.
Now, of course, this step and the next couple of steps in the coaching hiring process is to also figure out position coaches. And Jeff McLean, he basically confirmed that every current Eagles coach on their roster is on the chopping block except for offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland. To no surprise, he'll be returning. And Sirianni did reference passing game coordinator Kevin Patullo twice yesterday, so he's expected back as well. Now, Vic Fangio seems to be wasting zero time looking to fill his coaching staff and interviewed virtually yesterday with Packers defensive coordinator, or formerly thereof, Joe Brady via Zoom. Now, Brady, again, was the Packer DC this season, and while many cheeseheads wanted him gone in the middle of the year, his performance in the Packers' 2 playoff games definitely has me intrigued. Plus, if they were to hire Barry as a linebacker coach, it would emphasize to me that they actually want to have a competent linebacker group, because the Packers, they always had seemingly very strong linebackers under Barry, although Howie Roseman's answer yesterday when asked about his addition to the linebacker group didn't really give me a lot of confidence.
There's some preconceived notions that, we're just at the linebacker position, that we don't care who we play at linebacker. And again, our 2 Super Bowl teams over the last 6 years, linebacker play was good, from those guys. And I think, if anything, it's my belief in the players that we have, the young players that we have. I have a lot of belief, and I know Coach does as well, in Nakobe Dean, and so I believe in the player, I believe in the person. We lost 2 linebackers at that spot, 2 good players from our Super Bowl team. And we had Nakobe wait in the wings. We drafted him for that role. Obviously, it didn't work out perfectly for him this year. That doesn't change the belief we have in the player. And then, we felt like we'd have the ability to get an off-ball linebacker, a will linebacker who can run and hit. And honestly, when you watch the tape, Zach Cunningham had a good year. He really did. And he had a mentality that we liked from that position. Of course, we missed some of the guys that left as free agents, missed some of the guys on and off the field that we had strong relationships with.
Philadelphia also, apparently just a couple of minutes ago, completed an interview with former Jags defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell for their linebacker coach opening as well. Although you got to remember, Caldwell just last week originally interviewed to be the DC, but now seemingly will take a lesser role with a team like Philadelphia if no one wants him to be at the helm of their defensive system. Now, say what you want about Vic Fangio, and I got a lot of comments on my show the past 2 days saying, I hate Fangio, what a terrible hire, the Dolphin players didn't like him, why are we bringing him in? There's one thing you have to remember. Vic Fangio's entire style of defense has formed some really, really good coaching disciples from that tree. It's not necessarily the Andy Reid coaching tree or the Sean McVay coaching tree, but it's still very, very highly respected. And it seems like a lot of these defensive coordinators who are now going to have to go down a step after failing as a DC are going to want to come under the wing and under the tutelage of Vic Fangio, because one thing's for sure, Vic Fangio's disciples, they get interviews, and I could see Philadelphia trying to go ahead and put together a superstar coaching staff on this defense of highly recognizable names, former defensive coordinators, to build out what could be an all-star cast, and hopefully the end result would be in a much stronger DC unit than what you saw in 2023. Time will tell. We have no idea exactly who they're going to go ahead and hire, but the fact they continue to look at big-name people on both the offensive side of the football and the defensive side of the football for even small, assistant coaching positions or linebacker coaching positions is a good sign for me. And it circles all the way back to Nick Sirianni and this idea that, well, maybe keeping Sirianni isn't the best move for Philadelphia long-term, but if they wanted to build around him, they at least need to put a strong coaching staff around him, because when they did that back in 2022, they went all the way to the Super Bowl. And so trying to duplicate that success, it at least makes a little bit of sense to me. And this is the best channel to be up to date on everything happening with the Philadelphia Eagles as we continue to march towards the NFL draft, the combine, the offseason. It's going to get really wild if it isn't wild already. If you haven't subbed yet, we're almost to 40,000 subs. We're like 400 away, 500 away. It's crazy how close we are to 40K. If you like this channel, you want to be notified when stuff happens, like we're going to do every single day going forward, hit that red subscribe button, notification bell. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm Thomas Mott. Hope you guys have a great Friday. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.